Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rudy Page, and this is the Caribbean Workforce and Communities End of Year Report. And it's actually an opportunity for individuals and organisations to provide an overview of their activities and highlight some of the lessons learned and what they intend to apply throughout 2022. And this stems from the trusted messengers model that we've developed. And these are individuals and organisations with a proven track record of achievement from diverse clinical, faith, media and professional and scientific backgrounds. And they'll explain their unique approach from their cultural understanding perspective in terms of how they've been addressing the concerns and issues and the way that they've influenced attitudes, behaviours and confidence in terms of how best we can collaborate and make our way through this pandemic. There has been a lack of appreciation that Caribbean communities are sensitive to inequalities in science, particularly that about them being aware of, and of course understanding the fears relating to things that have gone in the past. But what you find from the trusted messengers, that they've been able to help the community to be informed, reassured, so that they can make the choice. And we also, of course, do understand that misinformation and distraction have been conflated with some of the long-term structural inequalities. And that's why the trusted messenger model is really designed to foster collaboration and create the best way forward for all communities. So we've got a diverse range of speakers from the community, and they will each introduce themselves, speak for a few minutes, and I'm really pleased to invite our first speaker, and that's Pastor Antonio Toussaint from Living Water Fellowship, Church of God of Prophecy in North London. Good evening, Pastor.
Good evening, Ambassador Rudy. Good to be here. I'm fine, thank you. Greetings to everyone in the precious name of Jesus. Yes, I'm from Living Water Fellowship, part of Church of God of Prophecy in Tottenham area, pastor the church there. I can see my co-pastor, Pastor Lenore Greenaway, is also on. And we've been engaged in the community. Our vision has always been a voice in the community. And I know you want us to discuss about the past year. Just a brief background, we had launched Seniors Club to cater for the needs of our seniors. And as Rudy know, we launched that in West Indian Cultural Centre, although we had been conducting Seniors Club before, but this was during the day, addressing the needs of isolation, the need for fellowship contact, and that was sort of obviously stopped because of the pandemic. But we've continued that every Tuesday at 11 o'clock on Zoom, where we've met with them, encouraged them in relation to exercise, in relation to their well-being, mental well-being. Also, once the lockdown had eased, I've met with them in a public place, parks, and just encouraged to keep their mental well-being going through things like Spanish lessons, puzzles, quizzes, different other things. And so that's been ongoing for near 2 years now, during this time. And that's been a real blessing, and it's been consistent throughout that time. During the last year, we've had to get involved on the Zoom and sort of adjust our approach. And we've had with discussions with the leadership, especially with Pastor Lenore, we developed a Financial Friday where some of the things about finances and how we manage our finances, debts, we're not done, but Financial Fridays included just having proper discussions, having experts on explaining how to manage your finances, how to get out of debt, how to do wills, etc. This just didn't just cater for our seniors, but our young people and general members and for the wider community. So that's something that we hadn't really addressed in the church in past times, and it's been very helpful in the approach. Also, we all had a sort of a Healthy Wednesday seminars, sessions put on just to encourage, especially during the lockdown. It highlighted the need to keep ourselves healthy, exercise, healthy eating. We have some experts in our church who address that. And we also brought in some other experts who could also give talks on that. And many applied the principles that we've learned there. We also involved in Christian Against Poverty. We have got a coach, qualified coach, who was given lectures, talks, conducted seminars. And again, that helps those who may be struggling financially with debt, not just within our local church, but the community, about how to deal with that. And that's in collaboration with another organization. With our youth, we've had youth club prior to the lockdown. We've continued with the youth fellowship, something where they're being taught, and it's not just taught sort of biblical principles, but taught life skills, and help to mature them. And it's something where also mentorship has been involved. So that's been a fantastic input from our leaders. And recently, obviously, we've been engaging with yourself, Rudy, and this community wellness service, partnership with the Haringey. We had a service at our church, which was very informative. And we followed it up by being involved with the Women in Voice conference that they had, the day self-day care they had on Saturday, the 11th of December. Pastor Lenore was a guest speaker there. We contributed towards the donations, food and gifts, and financially, individuals provided. The church supported that. We also support homeless organizations. So we don't just do the things that are within our church, but we do provide support for other organizations. And it's quite exciting to get involved and listen, especially when we had our own service with yourself and the guest speakers that came along, that, we can help one another and get involved more in the community. So I just wanted to throw it out there, something where we purchased a church van, but that was not just to minister or cater for our church needs, but also for the community. So there have been other organizations who have said, could we use that? And we've used it. We've used it for a food bank in central London, one that we also support financially as well for homeless people feeding. So we're quite excited, and I just wanted, there's only one scripture really I wanted to just share, is from Luke 10, where Jesus speaks about loving God and loving your neighbor, and answers the question of who is your neighbor, and really illustrates the principle of love, that your neighbor is who you're going to help, and we want to help our community. In addressing that's a brief overview. Pastor Lenore's on. I may have missed some things. I know my time might be running out. I didn't put a timer on.
Yeah.
But just in dealing with what we've learned and a couple of things. It really is kind of surveying and finding out what the needs of people are, listening to those needs and addressing those. So the mental well-being, the isolation, the activities, those are things that we listen to and kind of then sort of address by providing different resources. Some of the things I've learned is being committed, being consistent, whether your numbers are up or down, or whether people don't turn up, just be consistent and it will gather momentum. And a key thing is making sure we've got the resources. If we had more resources, we could do a lot more. So, things like even a van driver to take the community somewhere, or people that are able to volunteer their services during the daytime is one of the things that we need to try and be more active in and try and get those resources together. So that's just a quick overview. I hope
you're within the time scale, which is
okay. The other thing is, just as Angela's on there, we also do support Rafa, and especially when there's a need, a disaster, we help and we make sure we provide funds and support there. So we want to make sure that the social action part of our vision, our mandate is being fulfilled. So I don't know if there's anything else that I've missed. I don't know if Pastor knows there. She could always say something.
All right, we can pick it up in the chat room.
Yeah, okay.
No one wants to say anything. Right, thank you for that. Great overview. Angela Clark, I'd like to invite you for the next 7 minutes, please.
Good evening, Rudy, and thank you very much for inviting me this evening, and it's great to see friends and colleagues that some I've worked with, some I haven't met before on the platform, but it's really good to be here. My name, as you've heard, is Angela Clark, and I am CEO of RAFA, International Development Agency, which is primarily the charity arm of the Church of God of Prophecy, social action agent, let me say. I describe it as the bridge between the church and the community. So really, when I reflected even on the year that we have had and the work that we have done, I had to kind of think to myself, how did we achieve all that we have had, all that we have done, amidst the challenges that we have faced? But nevertheless, in the next 5 minutes, let me say, I'm going to try and really just to give you just a brief overview of some of the things that we have been involved with. We were successful in actually acquiring a number, or being awarded a number of contracts this year in various areas. The first one was around the Windrush situation, and we collaborated with the Home Office to raise awareness about the support information and advice that was available for people who may have been affected as a result of the Windrush scandal. Now, prior to this, RAFA had spent many years collaborating, I think going back to 2018, and Rudy will know because he was really a catalyst in actually bringing RAFA and the Home Office initially really together. But we've continued that work with the Home Office, and we put on a number of symposiums and dialogues and support and raising awareness across the country in various areas. And one of the main things I think that came out of that for us was being involved, sitting around the table with Home Office representatives, actually being able to influence and provide input to future border controls and issues that were going to affect people coming into the country, but also being able to contribute directly to the Wendy Williams report and findings, and actually being able to meet her directly when she revisited the Home Office to actually review the work that they were doing following the 30 recommendations that she made, and being able to talk to her directly about our experience as stakeholders working with the Home Office to really try to make a difference. And some of the barriers, some of the successes, and a whole range of issues. And it was good to hear that she was actually engaging with stakeholders directly, that we actually were able to be on that platform. And it really felt like a genuine effort to find out whether the Home Office were doing what they said they were going to do, and actually whether they were committed to those recommendations. We have also seen some successes ourselves in the people that we have helped going to actually access the support via the helplines. We've seen people receive their permanent stay, their passports, and actually we've been able to go on to help people to apply for compensation. We have seen some successes, maybe the amounts not as what people would have liked, but we are also looking at that. But one of the successes that we have seen was the increase of the award from a minimum £250 to a minimum £10,000. So that we see as a success. Moving on from the Home Office, we also collaborated with public health around their better healthcare campaign, or better health campaigns, and put on a number of health-related initiatives, and pretty much along the lines of Pastor Andonia was talking about, looking at the health inequalities and promoting healthy eating, self-care, and all of those things. And the great thing about doing this kind of work is the collaborations that you make. So collaborating with Reach Society, supporting them on their Smart Health project, which I'm sure Dr. Dwayne will talk about. We were able to do that. Being involved in the Reach Society's Ask Our Experts series as well, which touched on things like mental health. We were also able to support the Church of God of Prophecies counselling initiative in their Sentient project, really providing our knowledge and skills, because myself as a qualified psychologist and psychotherapist was able also to help them with the knowledge and skills to provide an infrastructure of support in helping those as a result of the bereavement through the pandemic, responding to the needs of the members, and also the community to provide counselling support to people. So the whole holistic health was really kind of magnified, and really I think the faith groups and church, certainly Church of God of Prophecy and other churches embraced it by really putting putting onto their platforms on a Sunday, whether it be morning or evening, the holistic health, the holistic health focus, and actually inviting people onto the platforms to actually give factual information and advice around the vaccine, and discussing things like vaccine hesitancy. And so therefore I see RAFA, as I've said before, as the bridge to bringing into focus those important issues. We've also worked with the NHS around the blood and organ donation campaigns, raising awareness about the people who are affected because of the lack of the Black community to donate blood and organs, and just raise awareness about that in general, so people actually understand the inequalities that we face and why we face them, and the effects that it's having on our communities.
Okay.
Not sure what time I have, but if I go on to kind of
1 minute
left. Okay, so let me if you want me to kind of say what I've learned, or what tips, or maybe let me say that something that will continue for me in 2022, for me and for RAFA as an organization, the importance of collaboration, but not just collaborating for collaborating's sake, collaborating with like-minded organizations who have a genuine and authentic vision, mission, and passion for the people in their communities. And we have definitely benefited from that. We've learned a lot, and we will continue to use our knowledge, skills, and transferable skills, and transfer those to enhance the lives of the people that we serve. So that's a snapshot. It's probably only a margin of the things that we've done. But thank you for the opportunity of sharing. And thank you for those on the platform that we have collaborated with, because you have made an exceptional difference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Angela. And I should say as well that Terry Reid was the community pharmacist who took part in the community service wellness service at Living Water Fellowship, and he kind of exemplifies what we mean when we say the workforce is the community and the community is the workforce. And now I'd like to ask Hugh Bellows, please. Thank you, Hugh. You got your 7 minutes.
Good evening, everyone, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. Some of you for the first time, but most importantly is that we're all working for the same premise, that we want to improve the health of our community. Now, I come from a different perspective, basically. I am the creator of Black Business Recommendation, a small group who promote Black businesses solely. There's no twerking, dancing or anything. It is strictly business. Now, on that basis alone, what I found was that as a community, we spoke about business, but we didn't do a lot in terms of our own health. So what we actually started doing Black Business Recommendation is to promote businesses, the health centers and so on, for free, just to make everybody know what's going on. Now, through conversations I've had with Rudy, who has actually put me into the right framework, because it was very difficult. I was as a layperson on the subject of, you know, the COVID and all the things that happened around that, I was just inundated with information left, right, and center. Where do I go? What do I do? Who do I talk to? It was with the benefit of working with Rudy that I understood that the best platform to go to was from the perspective of the National Health Service and the people who can actually support. Now, did I know anything about the pharmacists who could help us? No. But if I give you a little story, just recently, I called my doctor to say I needed prescriptions, and my doctor said, we can't help you on the phone. So, you know, after a long debate, why can't you help me? Your doctors, you know, I regularly have my prescription. They said to me, why don't you call the pharmacist? I said, what? I don't know the pharmacist like that. You're my doctor. I need to talk to you. The doctor then said to me, okay, well, call the pharmacist, the receptionist, sorry, said to me, call the pharmacist. They know you, so they'll do what they need to. Lo and behold, I called the pharmacist, and they sorted out my prescription by speaking to the doctor. They knew, you know, there was a connection between the two. And so what you have is a situation where our community don't know the benefits of the pharmacist, such as, yeah, that we don't understand. We just know that if we need anything, go to doctors, collect from pharmacists, and, you know, the conversation is not real. So within that, what I've done is I've looked at what do we do as Black Business Recommendation? How do we promote the services that are in our community? Not just, you know, the businesses, but the fitness and the health and the doctors, the pharmacists and so on, and promote them and get our community to speak to them. Now, I can't do much about all the other things around, but if I open the door for our community to be able to speak to our pharmacists or our doctors and the people who have the medical knowledge, then we then cut off that conversation that people are having of, you know, someone with some inflated idea about what this COVID is about, and they've just read something from someone who just wrote something. You know, we cut that out and we get straight to the people who can help us. And so that's why I'm so pleased that, you know, I can be a part of this, because I am looking at how do we, you know, as our Black Business Recommendation, how do we support our community? So right now we are looking at CIS, yeah, to actually CIC, to actually make sure that we can actually open up a different branch of what we're doing to promote our health and our well-being. So, you know, I'm here to learn, and that's where I am. So I haven't taken up 10 minutes, Rudy, but I think I've done as best as I can.
No, you've done very well, Hugh. And I'm very impressed the fact that you now position your organization to focus on the health and well-being of the community, in terms of there's not a price tag onto it, which is really great. And that's what we need, and you using your platform to do that. And of course, you did come on to one of the platforms for the what your community pharmacy can do for you, part of the CCG South East London, and your contribution was, you know, well received, and your feedback has been taken on board. So I'm sure we're going to see more in the future. So thank you very much for that, Hugh.
My pleasure.
I'd like to call Garrick now. Garrick from Liverpool.
Yes, good evening, everyone. So I'm speaking from Liverpool. I live on the other side of the Mersey in Cheshire, but Liverpool is my main city, and I do a lot of work in Liverpool and across the region. I do a number of things, so probably it's a good idea just to give you a sort of a snippet of the work I'm involved, both regional and national. Firstly, I'm a community development person. All my life, I've been involved in the community. Regardless of what professional role I held, I was still involved in the community. And that goes back to my days on the front line in Brixton, South London. Most of my work centered around people. And I say that, people, and particularly people from my community. That would be people from the Caribbean community. And there's a very good reason why I state that, because for the last 10 years or so, I've been focusing on mental health for African Caribbean community, very Pacific. And that came out of the work I've been doing in the community prior to this, which expose, you know, some of the issues our community have faced for many years. You know, very scared of mental health services, not finding anyone in service that look like them, you know, not even wanting to talk about their issues, stigma, all those things. So my mission has been to try and improve that old situation, both for our community as users, but also to break down the barriers within mainstream organization. And the way I've gone about doing that is really try and work at the strategic level with organization. So I provide some consultancy work from Mind Charity, which is the largest mental health charity. I'm also a trustee for Rethink Mental Illness. So I'm actually sitting in the position of influencing change in those organizations. At the same time, there are issues in communication. How do we get information to our community? And how do we engage with them? Because mental health is really foreign to us. I mean, these words, we use these words, but it really doesn't mean a lot to us. You know, we need to break things down and let people understand what is it you're talking about. You know, if something's gone wrong with your mind, people don't know what has caused that.
Yeah.
So we have to start to, you know, bite size. And when we get to that position of engaging with somebody, we can start to understand what's going on within their own life, you know, and they will start to open up, you know, to express themselves. That will take some time. You know, you may have to befriend the person for many months before they come forward and say, well, you know, this issue. So these are challenging things for us. And I think for all of us on the platform tonight, you know, that's something that we need to continue to work at, try and improve that communication, two-way communication between us and our community, and also with mainstream organization, because we haven't got sufficient Black-led organization to provide the support for our community. So we have to go back to the mainstream who have the resources, but those resources has not been directed in the right way. And our sister mentioned Windrush. I've been working with the Windrush community for the past 3 years or so. WD Legal based in Manchester, Preston Windrush, Peterborough, and a number of other projects, and also a member of Windrush National. And of course, in 2018, when that broke, we didn't quite understand the implication of all this. Now we're starting to, you know, to get all the evidence, how it has impacted on individual and families and whole community. And even now, as we speak, it is still impacted on our community. So, you know, it's a collective effort for us to continue to support our community, whether they're Windrush or otherwise. I'm second generation Windrush. My parents came 59. I arrived here 67. And my children are third generation. I now have grandchildren, fourth generation, and still we're experiencing these difficulties. So, right, you know, the fight doesn't stop here. It will continue.
You got one
another minute?
Okay. 1 minute, yeah.
Okay, so the other work I do is I'm elected public governor for the NHS. So my constituency is Wales, England and Wales. That means I work across the country to really see what's going on in different trusts up and down the country, good practice. And in particular, when I say good practice, the way that people experience services in those trusts, from a Black perspective. So I'll stop at that.
Great. Thank you very much for that, Garrett. And yes, when it comes to mental health, treating people with love, compassion, and with humanity is where you get the best outcomes. And I certainly look forward to collaborating with you in the future. I know Richard has done a lot of work over that side, so we will definitely be connecting in the new year. We've got the 4 pilot sites going across the country at the moment under what's called PCREF, the Patient and Carers Race Equality Framework. I'm involved with the Birmingham one with the Association of Jamaicans and the Birmingham and Solihull Mental Health Trust. And with Richard, we've been thinking about how we design a national framework to ensure that the knowledge is shared from the different pilot sites, and then connecting to our local organisations that are dealing with such issues. And as you've rightly said, and it's been touched on before, we've got to make best use of the resources we have. That's the reality of the position. And yes, there's the system itself, and there's what we do as well. And many of us do have access to the resources within the system, but we've got to collaborate better for the future. And that's one of the big lessons that we've certainly learned. So thanks a lot for that, Garrett, and look forward to working with you in the future. I'd like to call Richard Davis now. Richard.
Sorry, good evening. Start again. Good evening, everyone. Yes, we did start
7 minutes.
a similar program last year that we look at lesson learned during the pandemic period, and find that over 12 years later, we talk about the issues as we go forward, as we still addressing the issue around the pandemic. Listen, one of my main challenge regarding the last 12 months, it's more around the pandemic, COVID. It impacts everyone. I know you mentioned about its business side, but yes, it's impact business, various community organizations, on the ordinary person on the street. And for me, as a small business advisor, and again, through my own business, I also involved in dispute resolution, which also identify a lot of issues, concern. And I'm a community activist for over 38 years. And what important at the start of this year was the issue of the COVID. And I recall at the start of the COVID, around April, the end of March, April, we actually, with the help of Rudy, we said we need to look at, put together a Caribbean, African Caribbean, UK collective response to COVID. And we take it from, not just from a Greater Manchester or London perspective, look at from a UK wide, because there's a lot of various established community organizations across the UK, from mental health, deal with young people, deal with issues around sickle cell and other health-related issues. But we're just never coming together in trying to say, wait a minute, there's a serious, deadly pandemic impacted so much on our community. How can we learn from good practice around different parts of the city? In some way, Manchester was very fortunate because at the start of the pandemic, we have an organization, they Caribbean African Network, and they was positioned in the sense that they was part of the government dissolved health and well-being program. So their funding was channeled towards them into trying to get the Black community more mobilized and more aware of how to address the issue around the pandemic. As it came in the early part, that its impact on our community for various reasons. Either the frontline staff and also our community were affected by serious health-related issues. What I do, with the help of other community activists across the Greater Manchester, I would say even further than that. I know my colleague mentioned, Garrett mentioned about Liverpool. You know that my work don't stop at the border with Greater Manchester. I work beyond that. I work with colleagues in Preston and in Liverpool. I travel to Liverpool a lot to talk to colleagues up there, both from a business as well as from a community activist level. And as well, I work with Rudy and other organizations. The importance of the work I do is I tend to use the various themes. We have the Windrush Day, as was mentioned about Windrush. And we use the Windrush Day as an opportunity to mobilize the community around various issues. Most of the time it's around the COVID, but also other issues impacting the community. We also use the Black History Month. And I think this year was, I'm not sure if people noticed across the UK, but there was a lot of money, government money and local authority money available regarding various awareness programs. We even see on the national TV only adverts and promotions about our culture and also about the impact the COVID have on our community. Yes, I'd say to my colleague, don't back off, use the opportunity to make use of it in a very positive way. We have the Sickle Cell, International Sickle Cell Day. Again, we use that as a very strong vehicle to use it to promote various issues in our community. So what I'm trying to say, it's difficult to get our community to focus on one thing, but if there's activities like the Sickle Cell events, we have the Windrush Day and Black History Month, use those very constructively, strategically, in a way to say, because we find that our community tend to mobilize, especially over the last 3-4 years, under those heading. We can use those heading as well as business, because apart from I run my business, I also facilitate the Caribbean Business Forum. And again, I use that as a platform to address issues impacting on our community, might be the various island nations around Greater Manchester and beyond, to say these issues impact the community. And some of those organizations, they have their own AGM or various committee meetings. I attend some of those meetings and use it as a platform, again, to be aware, even to do with around mental health issue or around to do with the COVID. As I keep repeating COVID, it is the pivotal issue that impacted our community from last year and this year. And we know going to 2022, and it's not over yet. Its impact, we need to make sure, as I said before, we have the African Caribbean Community Collective Response. We need to use those platforms and work in conjunction with our established organization. In Manchester, we're very lucky. Apart from CAN, we have established the Sickle Cell Center, been going for 30 years. We have a mental health group that's been going for 30 years. We have the African Caribbean care groups that been going for 30 years, and they are well funded and well supported across Greater Manchester. It's just to get them to work together, and that's where my role, I think, is important, because as a community activist, and I know these organizations, sometimes it's the point of actually trying to get them to focus together and say, listen, the stronger we work together, we can achieve a lot more. Absolutely. I don't stop there. My platform, as Rudy knows, is a national platform, because any good practice achieved anywhere, I could say to people in Manchester, I've just been to London, or been on the phone to someone from Bristol, or even Sheffield or surrounding cities. Why not try to adopt some of these good practices?
Exactly.
Yeah? Because there, so we need to make sure how we can go forward and become more, play a collective response in COVID. COVID is key. It's impacted so much on our communities. And as a community activist and as a business advisor, I'm playing two roles. And it worked effective for me because of the combined experience I have in both areas, and the strong respect I get from my community, because I'm always regard myself as a trusted messenger in our community.
Right.
Just one quick point, Rudy, if I'm not worth of time, I just want to say what lesson learned, and I think this is very important. To me, collective approach to problem solving is important. It's no brainer, because it's avoid duplication, and also to build solid relationship in going forward. Yeah. And that I learned that from being to work with small business. People say small business is hard work, but my experience is you build a relationship with them, And the very people I used to drag into to networking meeting, now they're ringing me, want to know when is the next one.
Yeah.
And you understand me? So it's about building relationship. And said you need to get funding for a particular project before. Again, I have to beg them to come to these and put the application. Now they want to know when is the next application round. That again is building relationship.
Yeah.
So I think lesson learned, collaborative approach,
Mhm.
which avoid duplication and building solid relationship. To me, it's important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Richard. And not only that, should add the work that you did last year in bringing the community stations together as well, so that we could get that communication out. And some of the work we've done here in London, where we've brought Fresh FM Radio London, SLR Radio, also Station FM. So there's been a lot of digital collaboration, which again is something that we've learned for next year. That there'll be a lot more digital interconnections to get those messages through from our community, particularly our scientists. So having said that, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Donald Palmer, who's again done sterling work right across the country on many Zooms. Dr. Palmer, over to you, sir.
Evening, Rudy.
7 minutes.
And it's a real pleasure to be here. And I'm amongst some really amazing colleagues, and in particular, my dearest brother and fellow comrade, Dr. Dwayne Neal, OBE. I'm going to talk about 2 points. I'm going to talk about me specifically, but then I think it would be great for Dwayne to talk about Reach Society, because Reach Society has done additional work outside of what I'm doing. So I think it's only fair that Reach Society get a mention, because I've spoken both in my capacity as Reach Society, but moreover in my capacity as an associate professor of immunology. So I'll speak about that role. And it's specifically with COVID. And the reason why I'm grateful, Rudy, for what you've done is, and others like Dwayne and Angela, and many of you on the call, recognize the disparity in information. So I'm just going to briefly talk about my journey and what I've experienced. And in fact, I remember having a conversation with Dwayne. This is now over 2 years ago, when there was a potential for the vaccine. But prior to that was about the impact of COVID on the community. So we were looking at that, and I remember Dwayne discussing that data about the disproportionality. And partly I got involved in a conversation with another dear friend of mine, Professor Winston Morgan. But just to set the scene scientifically, this is really important, because there was talk when there was the disparity. There was talk that, oh, this must be related to some genetics. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but this was the early conversation. And I and Professor Winston Morgan and others attended various events and said, look, there's nothing genetically different between Black people and other groups of people. The reason why there's the disparity really lies with systemic racism and underlying inequalities that already exist in society. So I want to share that with you, because this was before, and I think this precipitated others such as Professor Kevin Fenton and his report, because those initial discussions now over 2 years ago was, oh no, this must be some sort of gene factor. So I think that's really important to mention. I think one of the important things about our journey, and I know what Dwayne will touch on this, and this is really reflected in what Rudy's done. And in fact, a reflection of this discussion we're having today is that what's really impressed me most is that our community have stepped up really impressively. So when we look back almost 2 years ago, when there was the idea of the vaccine was going to be rolled out, various reports were coming in that the uptake of the vaccine amongst Black people was as high as 70 odd percent. You may remember those reports. And I had a conversation with Dwayne, with Rudy and others, and we were saying, well, look, is this really true? Let's look at this and let's discuss this. And then literally for an entire year, we've been having discussions with a large number of individuals, because what's happened is that the government has just said, this is it, take the vaccine. And there's not really been any discussion to specifically target and address the community's concerns. Now, if you take vaccine sort of uptake, it falls generally to three camps. You've got those that will really take the vaccine. The other group are the anti-vaxxers. And you've got a large number of people who are in the middle that are really unclear and are not really sure of what's going on. And what has happened is there's been a whole raft of misinformation that has really dissuaded, and particularly targeting the legitimate concern that our community has. And so what Rudy, Dwayne, and others have done is literally take those groups that are in the middle, which is a large number of folks, and has really set about engaging with them, not only to address their fears and their concerns, but to acknowledge and subsequently provide the necessary information so that folks can make an informed decision. So, and in fact, destroying those many myths. And what I will say, and what's interesting, is I always worry about this, if our community and many of our Black professionals didn't step up, I wonder whether or not anything would have been done. Because quite frankly, it seems nothing is still being done.
Yeah.
Because literally the last couple of weeks, I've already been on the phone and done about 2 or 3 events about the boosters. So the government says, yes, we've got to take boosters. And yet nothing is being done to address the communities and our concern. And so what we've been able to do, and I say we collectively, we've all managed to address that. And I think that's really a credit to what we've done. The next stage that I see, and this is where I think Wayne can comment on the stuff doing Reach Society, is to highlight the health inequalities that already now exist. So the challenge for us is post-COVID, how do we now address those health inequalities? And I think that's really important. There is still, however, a challenge. So going forward, so one of the things that I've learned is a continual dialogue with the community.
Absolutely.
It really needs to continue. And in fact, I was speaking to colleagues today, and I'm no doubt you're well aware, London now seems to be the epicenter for Omicron. Equally, a large number of London ICUs, 2/3 or more of patients they're seeing are unvaccinated. Okay, so that and one of the things that's really to be careful. I was actually speaking to some scientists today and last week, and aware that the Omicron variant, might be less severe, but nevertheless, that's maybe less severe if you are vaccinated.
Yes.
If you're not vaccinated, it will still cause problems.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're seeing. So I'm really grateful to really be sharing a platform with you all. And it's really a case of continuing the messaging. And it's really about, as Rudy and Dwayne said, it's about having trusted voices. And primarily showing respect to our community, not dismissing their concerns, but saying, yes, we understand and recognize that, and be able to really address and ask their questions. And I think that's really important. I know Angela has done some, tremendous work by just talking to folks and having that continual conversation. And I'll stop there.
Right. No, thank you very much for that, Donald, because that challenge that we face around communication, and yes, there is system indifference as it relates to our community's concerns, both within the workforce and within the community itself, and even the means of communication. And that's why, the kind of efforts that we're talking about, that we have got some sense of now of what we need to do for ourselves. And it is it will take people with courage to do it, because we're now talking about taking the path of maximum resistance. That's the path the trusted messengers have to go down in 2022, the path of maximum resistance, because of the structural inequalities. But like you say, those of us who actually understand that need to explain it more to the community, get the information out there, so
and you're right, Rudy.
reassure them so that they can
And
make
the key thing is that it's not a case where, I know with public health messaging, it's delivered once and that's it.
Yeah.
Knowing
it's ongoing.
For us, it needs to be ongoing, and
Yeah.
it needs to be continuous.
Yeah.
And that's what's needed.
Yeah. In fact, we have to accelerate. We have to accelerate what we're doing because we're so far behind.
Yeah, exactly.
And drive-by comments don't solve structural systemic challenges, and us thinking about collaboration within the system and avoiding what we call self-inflicted wounding amongst ourselves. So these are all part of that difficult environment that our community finds itself in, both from the workforce perspective and the community itself. The community not trusting the NHS, in spite of us having a vast amount of our own community in the NHS, so that means we're not trusting ourselves. So there's some internal structural issues that we have to address, as well as the wider systemic issues, and that's why I talk about the path of maximum resistance. But we'll get there. We've got the culture, we've got the understanding, we've got the people who are committed. So I'd like to, Hugh, have you got your hand up? I'll take that very briefly before I come to Dwayne.
Okay, Dwayne, I like what you, Donald, Mr. Donald, I like what you said, and it's inspired me to say to you all that you can use Black Business Recommendation as a platform for us to have a discussion, to open up to, the members of our group. That we've got about 10,000 strong, but we can actually put it out there to 250,000 people. So we can actually put something down, have a discussion about it, because as you rightly said, there's a lot of information going out there. And I, for one, was one of those people who didn't know who to believe or where the information is coming from. So I couldn't make a decision. And it was that, speaking to Rudy has actually helped me to sort of gear myself in one place that I can actually find the right information. I think one of the things about our community is we don't know you. And because we don't know you, it doesn't matter that you're in the NHS, because we don't know you, don't have a connection with you. That's one of the things about us. We need to build that connection. So I'd like to offer you all the opportunity to have a discussion on BBR so that we can actually present that to our community, and I will then be happy to share it worldwide.
That's really, thank you for that. I mean, even we did an event, Rudy and I did an event on Monday, and I just spoke generally, just not about COVID vaccine, but how the body responds. How does our immune system work? And even that general knowledge is people came back to me saying that I should be involved in doing the government briefing, which was very nice. But it was partly a case of folks in our, I get this, but folks in our community perhaps don't view Radio 4, etc., etc. So the difficulty is, where do they get their information from? And if it's via WhatsApp, it's rather troubling.
Yeah, and the important thing that we have to remember in social marketing, the basis is what we say is the means of communication may be different, but the needs are the same. The means of communication. So that means it's important that we get involved in the channels of the communication system that our community uses. And Richard gave a good point. When you look at the celebrations that the community responds to, that's where we need to put our messaging. And we do need to put our messages. That's why Hugh's point is really important. We do need to put these self-care and community wellness messages into the WhatsApp groups and the Facebook groups for the good and welfare of our own community, and not having a price tag put on in order to get that information into to ourselves. Right. So on that note, I'd like to call Dr. Dwayne to give his overview. Also, a few extra points from Dwayne, which I know he will give. And so, Dwayne, you've got 10 minutes as the last speaker. And thank you very much for what you've been doing. And we've collaborated a lot, of course, over the years. Over to you, Dwayne.
Okay, thank you, Rudy. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Lovely. Well, for avoidance of doubt to the folks listening, I'm not Dr. Dwayne, but I am Dr. Dwayne Neal. And Neal is my last name, so Dr. Dwayne Neal as opposed to Dr. Dwayne. However, why I think this is a beautiful opportunity to reflect on the year is that the pandemic indeed has challenged us all. But one of the things I would say to everyone here, the pandemic is not the only thing that we need to address. And life goes on, whether there is a pandemic affecting all of us or not. Those of you who are aware of Reach Society will know that I'm not just the chair of it, but I'm also one of the co-founders. So I was delighted when Donald popped up on the screen, because he, myself, and Rob co-founded Reach Society in 2010. And listening to some of the comments that were said, our motto is building connections. So Hugh, what you're talking about in terms of Black business recommendation, we absolutely believe in that, because building connections is the most effective way of doing what we need to do for ourselves, and doing it in a positive way rather than in a disjointed way. So yeah, we are now at the start of our 12th year. And one of the things I would say, Donald has picked up all of the key points around the work that Reach Society has done to try and build awareness and understanding of not just COVID-19, but also the efficacy of the vaccine. And just to put a number on it, we have done in excess of 50 events over the 12 months. So an average of 4+ activities. Donald has led the way in that, but he's also been supported in that by people like Frank Chinigwanda, who is indeed a doctor, a professor of surgery, John Indicum, another doctor who's also a key member of the Reach Society leadership team, and some very good friends of ours like Professor Winston Morgan. And I can call those names because those of you who are aware of Reach Society knows that we're an organization that attracts a lot of professionals from the Black community. And so we have no shortage of talented people who are involved with us, and an awful lot of them come from the medical sector. So once we'd worked out that there was an issue with hesitancy around the vaccine, we felt we were obligated to be a part of that conversation, which is why we've never turned down any invitation to be a part of that. And so Donald has spearheaded that work from a Reach Society standpoint. But let me move on and share with you some of the other things that we've done within the society, because our vision is about inspiring young people to develop their potential to become viable as adults. And we believe that if we, as responsible adults in the Black community, yes, I'm talking about those of Caribbean background, but I'm also talking about those of African background and those of dual heritage background, all of us born here, the vast majority of those in the Black community in the UK are born here today. Yes, I'm also, like an earlier speaker, I am a child of the Windrush generations. My parents were Windrush, but I too have children born here, and I've been blessed by having just under 3 months ago, my first grandchild. The vast majority of Black folks in the UK are British born. And we have got to make sure that they understand that our future survival will depend on how willing we are to take responsibility for every aspect of our affairs. So everything I've heard so far is music to my ears, because it is showing that there are lots of initiative and work being done to take responsibility for our affairs. And absolutely, it's been a joy collaborating with Angela and Rudy. And I'm just wondering, have I not spoken to you, Richard? Do we both know Linford Sweeney?
Yes, we did. If you recall, we have a few months ago, we have a discussion
Absolutely.
about, yes.
I kept on looking at you and looking at your name, and I'm thinking, I'm sure this is the person with the business background that Linford introduced me to. Brilliant to hear the things that you've been doing. So let me continue with my, sorry, go in.
Keep going, Dwayne. Keep going.
Let me continue with the things that we have done this last 12 months. Because of the scare that we received when the virus outbreak took place and we had no treatment, and there was a big messaging thing about the underlying conditions within the Black community, which meant we were more exposed to the impact of the virus. I became alarmed, we became alarmed in Reach Society. Long story short, we felt it was our responsibility to roll out the Smart Health Project. And within that project, we focus on why obesity is killing too many in our community, why high blood pressure is related to that obesity, why the diabetes is related to that obesity, and the diet that we eat, and also the absence of exercise after we leave school at 16 or 18. All of those things are connected. And we've been able to roll that Smart Health project out in our April Virtual Careers Conference. And our intention is to continue to roll out Smart Health messages in every single one of our outreach events that we do across the year. And the other thing that we have been doing this year is we've been preparing the ground for next year. So I'm proud to say to you, we are now at the beginning of up to 7 inspirational events that we hope to roll out in 2022. We've done the groundwork for them. Some of you who know Reach Society will know we've already booked the 5th of April for our annual careers conference. This year we had to have it as a virtual event, and we had over 2,000 young people involved in that. Is that all right? I'm just here.
Keep going.
Yeah. And next year, we're hoping the virus will be sufficiently under control for us to resume face-to-face. But in addition to that large event, we're talking to folks in Manchester, in Bradford, in Leicester, in Southampton, in Luton, and we're also talking to a couple of universities who've said to us, will you take your inspirational event on campus? Because what we would like you to do is not just speak to the young people aged 13 plus, but to talk to all of our undergraduates who are 18 plus, so that they can hear from your role models and they can be inspired by them. So with luck, 2022 will be an extraordinarily busy year as we take our inspirational message around the country. But we've done other things as well, because again, if you know how we operate, every month we have a networking conversation, and those networking conversations address key issues for our community. And we were able to roll out 12 of them this year. Typically we roll out 10, but there were folks who wanted us to roll out additional ones because they wanted us to continue to drive up the awareness around the efficacy of vaccinations. Schools, for example, are having difficulty encouraging their parents and their pupils aged 12 to 15 to take the vaccine and protect themselves and families. and they've come to Reach Society to say, can you collaborate with us so we can try and get that message across? So we've done some of those this year, and we have some in the pipeline for early next year. Say again?
1 minute, please.
Okay, no, that's fine. But in addition to that, we have published a booklet which we have entitled Our Guide for Celebrating Cultural Esteem, because we know that we have an extraordinary community of achievers and contributors. And we're wanting to say to the Black community across the whole of the United Kingdom, through our celebration of cultural esteem, we can not only inform ourselves of those achievers and contributors, but we can inspire our young people to know the community they're from and to know that they can amount to a lot more. And I look and I know that both Angela and Rudy will be involved in that, because they get what we get about inspiring our young people so that they become the next wave of extraordinary people. So let me park it there.
Great.
But you know, the work for Reach Society will carry on for as long as we have responsible leaders who are willing to support what we're doing. Thanks, Rudy.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. And I'd like to thank you all for attending this Caribbean Workforce and Communities end of year report. And it's about community wellness and collective responsibility. And most important, the trusted messenger model that we will certainly build on next year. So thank you very much, and wish you all a great holiday and see you next year. Good night.
Thanks, Rudy.